everybody. Welcome to Gootz and Riccadonna Pod. We are in episode 2 of season 2, the Pixar season. And I'm here, one of my oldest friends in comedy, Mark Riccadonna. Mark, how are you, buddy?
What up, Gootz?
Oh, man, it's so great to have you on this show. I've been wanting to have you on the show, but I wanted to find a good movie for you. I didn't want to give you, like, Cinderella and sit here like two fags talking about that. But
I got to ask, so did you start with the classics and then you...
Yeah. I did all the Disney movies made by Walt Disney Animated Studios. So I started with Snow White.
Okay.
And I ended with Frozen 2, which was a year ago. And then now I'm doing all the Pixar films. So that goes from Toy Story to Soul, which will be out on Disney Plus Christmas Day. So, and I'm doing a different comic for every movie. So
that's great.
Yeah,
it's funny. I mean, since I've had kids, 2 boys. We've gone to Disney twice.
Oh, wow.
And you completely forget that it's like not just a children's thing. Like there's so much good stuff for adults.
Yeah, I've yet to be Disney World. I don't know when I'm going to be at the state of this planet. Maybe at the end of when I decide to end this podcast, my last episode will be in Disneyland or Disneyland.
Live from Disney?
Yeah. But once the pandemic's over, who knows when? And I'll interview Mickey in it. I don't know. Or Capone. Me and Capone.
Bring them down.
Yeah.
That would be the shit right there, man.
She be coming, Mickey be coming.
Oh, that's when you flip over Minnie. Drop it in the booty.
Drop it in the booty. You stick it in the booty. Oh my god. Oh man. So you've been in Pennsylvania. Is it crazy over there? Because right now, this is gonna come out next week, but today, Pennsylvania they're still counting their ballots and things are getting crazy. Is it crazy by you, or is it nice?
So we were super lucky. I live in the burbs. I don't live in Philly. Mm-hmm. I live in a town called Ambler. And this was the first year ever, other than my first election, that I voted in person. I'm almost always on the road during the election, so I just do mail-ins. So this is the first time I ever went and mailed in person, which is hysterical because this is like the first time nobody seemed to have was in person. Yeah. But like I went in and there was 0 line. I walked right up, went right to my thing. I was expecting lines, and they said, "Oh, everybody mailed it in."
That's probably why it's taking so long to count over by you.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of people, did their mail-ins, and people who took the virus seriously did mail-ins. People who actually were nervous about, that took it serious and did the social distancing and wore masks and did that. And I guess that tended to be more liberal people. Mm-hmm. So the mail-in was what was, I think they quoted it as the blue wave is coming, or whatever. And when the results were coming out, I think everybody was like, there's no blue wave. Like, this is pretty neck and neck. But now
it's coming, yeah.
Now it's coming, and it's like, oh, my God. I don't know what the outcome's going to be, but, like, I think it's like 40,000 votes could change 3 states right now.
Yeah, it's getting pretty crazy. I don't watch the news, though. Every now and then I'll tune in, and I'm like, how you can watch this for 12 hours? They literally have nothing to report. It's like, I'm like, I'll just, hopefully when they call it, my phone will go crazy and all the Facebook will light up, and I'll be like, they called it. What's this? Whoever won. Yeah. But Mark, before we get to talk more about the end of the world, let's get to know you. How long have you been doing stand-up?
So this is crazy. I actually don't know when I started. I don't know the date, but I know I've been doing it somewhere around 17 years.
Wild. Okay.
Between 16 and 17 years. Because when I started, I was like you. I worked at a comedy club to learn the business, to learn how comedians act, how they get their stuff, where they go, how they get gigs. Like, it was just basically a learning thing. And I don't remember what my first night was because it was a situation where there was not a comic. They didn't know what to do, and they were stretching, and a couple guys knew I wanted to do comedy. So they kind of said, like, well, put up Riccadonna. And the manager at the time, Nick Samato, was like, Mark's not a comic. And I was like, I'll go up. And I went up and I had stuff written. I'm not going to say it was good, but I had structure to doing it. It wasn't like I just went up and wasn't prepared. And he was like, "Why didn't you tell me you wanted to be a comic?" And I was like, too embarrassed. But I have no idea when that was, because it wasn't like it wasn't like I was looking forward to this date because it's the day I'm going to do it. It was just kind of like, oh shit, now's my chance. Like it ran up and
was it a good set or was it a?
So
do you remember that?
To be completely honest, if I found that tape, I would be completely embarrassed of probably what I did. And it was being a brand new comic and never doing it before. I'm sure even the audience reaction was not amazing. But in my head, and because I had so much adrenaline, and because it was, you know, a laugh to me then was probably like, oh my God, I killed, you know, and I got like one laugh or whatever. I felt like it went amazing. And I think that's what gave me, you know, what like the drug addicts call like chasing a dragon. I just wanted that feeling again. So then it slowly became like everything I did. I was like an addict. Everything I did was, well, can I do stand up? We're going to go on vacation. You want to go? I wonder if there's a way to do stand up there. I wonder if I take this audition and I get it and we're filming something, will I be able to do stand up while I'm doing this? Like it became just such an addiction. How about for you? Were you?
I always wanted to do it since I was a kid. I was graduating college. I didn't really know what I was going to do. And did you know Brendan Michalowski?
Yeah, I know that name. Yeah.
He used to be like the website guy at Caroline's, and he had his own show, The Funny Film, something. Dimitri Martin would host it.
Yeah.
And he said to me, they need someone to answer phones at Caroline's. Why don't you do that? So I took that because I'd be like, all right, I'll be around comedy and I'll learn the ropes and I'll get on stage. And a year in, I went on stage. I went between Russ Maneve and Greg Fitzsimmons.
Ooh, that's not an easy spot either.
No, and I think it went well. I don't remember. I mean, I remember being very happy with you, but I'm sure if I saw the tape, I'd be like, this was fucking atrocious.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it goes well enough to give you the think I have to do this. But I would guarantee now us where we are now.
Yeah.
We look back and go, I can't believe I did that material. I can't believe I would think that was something I should say on stage.
I know the second time went horribly. I had to follow Ari Spears. That went horribly.
Yeah.
I remember that. I'm cringing just thinking about it now. And I should not have went up after Ari Spears my second time ever.
But, you know, the thing is like after the first time, it kind of went well for a little while where I feel like it was going good because I didn't care. Like there was no end result of like, this is what I want to do or am I ever going to be paid to do this? So I really didn't have a care. And now looking back and now that we're talking, I'm wondering if I had that because like on complete honesty that like just a couple laughs gave me enough, you know, a shot in my vein to say, oh my God, yeah, this is great. I did well. And in reality, other comics who do this professionally or seriously were looking at me like, dude, you're bombing for 5 minutes and you're killing for 2. Not even killing, you're getting laughs for 2.
Yeah.
But those 2 minutes to me made my set. Oh no, I got a huge laugh and an applause break on that one joke. I killed. Meanwhile, the rest of the set probably sucked.
Yeah, no, you're right. You get a few laughs and you're like, all right, well that works. And the scary part is there's people that are still doing comedy that only get one laugh per set. And they keep going, and I'm like,
they're still like, I won't mention names because I never would want to talk bad about them. But there's a couple guys that I know that like, there's a real hot crowd that's just laughing at everything, and you see their name on the lineup, and you go, oh no, they're gonna go up and kill because everybody can kill in front of this crowd, and this is gonna make them stick to it for another year.
Yeah. There's guys that get one laugh a year and they do not give up. And then there's people that should be headliners that have retired to be fucking school teachers and shit. And
Yeah.
It's wild to me. But yeah, there are sometimes I'll never when I was doing the show at Caroline's, they loved unfunny motherfuckers. And
Yeah.
they love forcing them onto my show. I
Hey,
would
Ray,
have
we're gonna crowbar this guy in your show. Is that okay? Like,
oh
I already have too many people on the lineup because you're a
yeah.
friendly guy.
Yeah, and here's three unfunny people that have no business doing this. And then it becomes a strategy of where to put them
How
so it
do I
doesn't.
hide them?
Yes. So you're like, all right, maybe between Judah Freelander and Carmen Lynch, they can't do any damage there, and then
Yeah.
Carmen's got to go, and you're like, oh shit. Then now there's gonna be between Carmen Lynch and a new guy, and now the show's gonna fucking fall off a cliff.
Now there's a possibility of something going bad.
Yeah. So
Ah,
it's always a tight walk, and it's always now that I'm doing my own shows and I'm kind of free, every now and then I'll have someone that I don't think is the greatest, but I feel much more confident about camouflaging them or putting
yeah.
them in a position. My other thing too is like
It won't hurt the show. They're not going to help
yeah,
it, but they're not going to hurt
they're not
it.
going to hurt it. But if you put too many of those people, that doesn't help them. This is what I'm learning. That a shitty comic, you can believe in someone who's shitty if they're new and they're shitty, but you think that hey they got potential.
Yeah.
There's ways you want to put them on shows with good people because
Yeah.
if they got talent and if they can learn, they're gonna learn from these
They're
great.
going to adapt and up
Yeah.
their game.
Yes, but if you put let's say you believe in 5 comics who are not very good, but you think they have potential, they're just gonna not learn anything, and they might even get worse. Just shove them all together on the same show, and you're gonna chase the audience away.
And yeah, they're gonna perform for each other.
Yeah.
Here's something, and this is so. I think for your audience, Ray and I both have booked a lot of shows where we ran shows in New York City, and I noticed, and this is just my personal belief, and there's 10 comics I could name that I was completely wrong on. But it was my belief that if you looked like a person who is actually working hard, taking notes from other comics, Elder Statesman, that would give you a tip or a note, and you listened, and if somebody said, work on this bit, and then all of a sudden they came back and I saw they worked on that bit, I would fight to get that person's stage time, even if they bombed, but they work hard. Where there were some guys that got away with having personality, and they got away with a charm on stage that they would kill when they went up, but they never worked on anything. They were super lazy. And I would never hurt them, like tell the owner not to book this person, but I would never push for them. I just believed in the hard worker. And I was wrong on a lot of levels. There were a lot of comics. There were a lot of comics that I were like, this guy has zero future in this business. He's too lazy. He has a sitcom and he's doing 3 movies. Just okay. Yeah. So what the hell do I know?
No, I don't, but I agree with you. Yeah, there's if you are putting the work in, if you're listening to advice, if you're adjusting your sets, then even if you have if you bomb a lot, you know what? It's a learning process. Not everyone's going to be, fucking Richard Pryor day one, but it's
Richard Pryor wasn't even Richard Pryor on day
exactly.
one.
Yes, so, but some of these guys just never learn, and they just they're just there like barnacles on a ship, and it's rough.
And I met you at Caroline's.
Yes, we met each other when they were doing New Class Clowns.
That's right, with Brian Kennedy. I love that guy.
He's a cool dude. Yeah, he awesome.
He would co-host
with Victor Hawks.
Yes.
Who it was an actor more so than a comic.
But they were great together.
They were. Victor Hawks was good, but he was a guy. He was basically like I hate to use that term, but he was basically a tourist. He was doing this while he was working on plays. I think he had a couple plays in production, and then I think he got some great deal to make a play somewhere, and he just vanished. He took off, and he's just a regular person now. But that was the guy who should have kept going.
Yeah, he was great. And them two together had a really good energy. And there's a lot of duos. And I'm not a huge fan of duos because I have a hard time paying attention when 2 people are talking at the same time. And they did it right. I don't know how they did it, but their chemistry, you never heard them both talking at the same time. They would just tag on top of each other, tag jokes.
Well,
and
I
it
think
worked.
they acted and stuff together, so I think they had that chemistry down of acting
Okay.
together, and then they brought it to the stage of perform. But I don't think Brian Kennedy is stand up anymore either.
He was running the brokerage out in Long Island by
Yeah.
where he lived.
Then he stopped, and now I don't know. I know he was always doing voiceover auditions.
Yeah, he's a great voiceover guy.
I think he does audiobooks, but I don't know really what he's been doing lately. I know his son is like a tennis prodigy. Other people tell me
That's great.
that the son is like, I don't know, the top of the kids. Basically, he's like Tiger Woods with a tennis racket. I don't know. So he can live off that, I guess, the rest of his life.
There you go. He can be tennis dad. You want to know how times have changed, Gootz?
What's
Do you
that?
see this glass?
Yeah. Apple
This
juice?
is you would see me doing this all the time at the club, filled
Yeah.
with Jameson.
Mm-hmm.
This is homemade kombucha.
Oh man,
That's who I turned into.
Well, once you have kids, you got to calm down. So.
Yeah, that's true. It's really hard waking up this early to take care of kids when you have a hangover.
Except for Capone, he just kept going.
He can do what he wants.
He
man.
ramped it right up.
I love that dude.
He's like, I'm fucking more bitches.
I did the 420 Yo Cannabis Comedy Festival with him, and his son was on it.
Oh, his son does that. I didn't know that. So this must have been recent.
Yeah, this is a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and he crushed. It was really good stuff. I was like, dude, this guy, not only is he good, his kid's a killer.
Well, that's what happens when you become it. So did you think about the joke? Did you think about our joke when you saw him?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And he hosted. I think he hosted. No, he didn't host it. Talent hosted it.
Oh yeah. So some background. When I was the manager at Caroline's, I'd have the weekends off. So Riccadonna, he would take me on the road. We would go to Poconuts and all this other stuff. And there was a weekend where he was headlining with Talent, and I think Mark Vieira. And we're almost, maybe you weren't in the car. I think you were with Riccadonna, but I was in the car with Mick Thomas. And they're like, get out of the car. We messed up. The other manager's not coming in. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm in Pennsylvania. We'll get on a bus. I don't even know where there's a bus. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, you don't get on a bus. And the driver, Mick was like, I'm not stopping the car, mate. And we're like in the middle. I don't even know where I am. Like, what bus are you talking about? By the time I get there, it's like 7 o'clock. By the time I get there, it's gonna be like midnight. What the fuck are you talking about? And they got mad at me. But on the way back, I was like, I'm just so glad I didn't have to deal with that show and that crowd. And they started doing an impression of Capone, and we now do it back and forth.
Yeah. So it was funny. I met you at Caroline's, and then time goes on, and we'd do the road a little bit. I'd lose track of comics all the time on a personal level because, you start working in one area, and I started going way on the road where I was like deep. I was traveling around the world doing USO stuff. And
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I disappeared, and well, to me, I didn't disappear. To me, I was just out working, but like I kind of lost touch with all of my New York friends because I was on the road so much. And then it was recently. It was actually, was it this year? The Disney auditions?
That was about a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't talked to you, or I haven't seen you physically. I've seen you online.
Yes.
And I got asked to be on this audition for Disney, and it was at Caroline's, and they said they're going to put me on to do a showcase with a couple other people. And I go online, and whose show is it?
The Gootz.
My man Gootz.
The Gootz show.
I was so goddamn excited to come and do the audition, but also to hang out with you.
Yeah.
And I even said I'm coming in early because I want to hang out.
Yeah, and we hung out a little bit. Yeah.
I got a flat tire on the parkway.
Oh, that's right. You were late because we had to move you back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get a flat tire with James Mattern. Neither of us know how to change a tire. We're calling the club. I'm trying to change the tire. I don't know how the jack works. I screw my hand up. I have a bloody knuckles.
That's right.
My shirt's sweat stained. I have debris from cars flying by and blowing turnpike dust. We get I get to a train station. We hop on the train. We come in. Our train gets stopped underground. I'm going, oh my God, this is like a great opportunity. I'm going to hang out with my friends, and it's all stopping. We finally get there. You guys put us on later. I ended up getting the contract, and I had a really big contract all this year, but then Corona hit.
I was about to be like, well, it was all moot because Corona. I didn't want to spoil the ending, but
I did 3 weeks on the ship, and then I had like 2 months off, and then in September, the second part of the contract, and I was basically on a ship every other week up into March.
Wow.
And it was like the greatest contract, and it's Disney. Everything's top of the line. Everything's like they pay well, they treat you well. You're allowed to bring your family. It's like unbelievable. And just like the audition, a lot of hurdles got thrown at me.
Jesus, yeah, no, I'm sorry. Now, if when things resume, are they going to put you back, or are they?
Yeah, what's pretty cool about Disney is they said don't consider it being canceled. We're just moving your dates.
No, that's good. Well,
So
yeah.
a lot of guys I know were like they had like a tally of how much money they lost because of Corona, and I'm like, I don't consider this lost money. It's just delayed money.
Yeah, and I think eventually that's a pretty good gig, and I think that'll pick up. It's different. Some of these other gigs, I think, so many comedians just lost things are never going to come back. So you're lucky that you had this gig to go back to.
Yeah, I love comedy so much, and whether it's stand up or movies or TV or live theater, like comedy is just so important and big in my life, and it's.
I have to say, I gotta say that I kind of needed a break from everything. I didn't know I needed it until I got it right before COVID hit. Yeah, I need it. Now I'm doing my own show here in New York, in my house, and it is so nice to book a show without a complete mental case looking over you and changing the rules on who you can and cannot book. And just always having this weird attitude that if a comic didn't make it at 12 years old, that's it. They're washed up.
Never, yeah.
We need a new we need to get new people in. It's just so nice to put on a show with people that I want to see, people that I that I know are gonna give the customers and the people that came out of Gootz, and it's making me love stand up again to perform with everyone I want to perform, not have some weirdo fucking kid shoved on my show or have some, it's just fucking great or compromise or anything.
I had never, and I don't want to sound like sour grapes here, but I've never understood, and every club had it in a different way. And I think like with management and agencies, and I never got what it was, but like there were certain people that were just picked.
Yeah.
And for no apparent reason. And when I was young, when I was in my 20s, and I was, I was a good-looking, young, in-shape guy and
strapping lad, yeah.
Strapping young lad, and I would like to say I was funny. I made a living doing comedy, but I had everybody in the industry going, it's all about being funny. Looks don't matter. The castability doesn't matter. You have to just be undeniably funny. So I never took chances to get seen because I was like, I just got to get funny. And then I got into my 30s, and it started to deteriorate.
Yeah.
And as I got fat and old and gray and all that stuff, everybody's like, well, you got to be good looking now to be a comic. And I'm like, I don't know if people were just trying to get me an excuse to get out of the business, but I never understood where
it's all from guys that are older. That's the weird thing to me. It's like you have these older guys who are old as shit, and they're like, they want 20-year-olds. But I'm just like, I don't think you really figure out life till you're in your 30s. And I think as a comic, you don't really figure out you can't. You're not at a level that you can be until you're in your 30s. There's only so much of life and bullshit you can go through
Yeah.
20s, no matter how, no matter how crazy your life was, whether you went to prison or whether you got divorced or watched people die, whatever happened to you in your life, it doesn't
Yeah.
stay with you until you're in your 30s. And in my 30s, I learned a lot about, like, self-responsibility and loss, and I think all that made me a stronger comic.
Yeah.
And if the world was normal, I think a lot of the scene would be like not the Gootz, or like, he's not marketable and stuff. And that's why I feel so, not that I feel so great about COVID, but I do feel like this is going to be like the great equalizer in terms of this
Yeah.
industry and the business, because now all those people whose only job was to be like, you're allowed on this show, you're not allowed on this show. Those people are useless.
The
I mean, because
gatekeepers don't matter in
they
this
don't
time.
matter. And for be honest with you, you'd have to be an idiot to perform at some of these clubs right now, because those are basically COVID traps. If they
Yeah.
did so I think now it's like, well, now I said this to some comedians. This is the first time in our history where we control our destiny, and whether it's podcasts or videos or, I mean, look at Tim Dillon. He sells out clubs all over the country, and it's affecting the entire state. But through his Twitter presence and his Twitter videos,
Yeah.
yeah.
It is. It's exciting, but it's also that also allows the noise to get louder.
Yeah.
The shitty people
Hmm.
there's more of them, and they're
Yeah,
out there. And
but the good thing about me, like, I'm doing my show, and like I want to have you on, we should talk after. But the good thing about it is that, like, I could just have comics I want on, and the audiences are
yeah,
coming back. And that's what I've learned. If you put on a good show, audiences will come back.
yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yeah,
But let me ask you about your childhood. How was that?
So I actually, it's funny. I grew up very unstereotype of most people in the arts. My family, like my later childhood, my family was 100% behind anything I wanted to do. So like when I wanted to become an actor, they were like, all right, great. Yeah. Make sure you go to a good school to learn it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to do comedy. They're like, yes, can we come to your shows? It was like very different that way. But as a kid, I had a very weird scenario because my brother was really funny.
Mm-hmm.
My brother was like the one who could get everyone laughing. He would, do these little like almost like sketches in front of the class and in front of the school and do impressions of all the teachers. And he was like really the class clown. But I could make him laugh. And everybody else didn't necessarily think I was funny, but my brother did.
Okay.
So like I worked to get him to laugh. If I could make him and my parents laugh, I was like awesome. My brother could make everyone laugh.
Now, what does your brother do now?
Right now he's cutting hair. He's going to barber school, but he has he was an air traffic controller. He was a welder. He was built cabinets. He has a graphic design degree, a fine arts degree.
So he's like a journeyman.
Yeah, he it's very interesting. He was a singer in a band, and I always kind of lived in his shadow. He wouldn't say that, but I feel like I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I at a young age, I didn't have many friends. I hung out with whoever my brother hung out with.
Mm-hmm.
So I hung out with older kids all the time. And I never really had the grounding of having like my friends. And I kind of was always trying to impress my brother's friends. And I think that's what got me into wanting to do entertainment. I was always trying to like earn my seat at the table with them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like if he was there's a party and my brother was younger, but they were older. So that was like seniors in high school. My brother was like a sophomore and I was like 8th or 9th grade. I was allowed to go to those parties. And it was like way out of my league to be there. So I felt like I had to earn my seat there. So I was always like funny and always trying to bust balls and get the biggest, toughest guys to laugh. So then they would accept me because then if they liked me, I was protected.
It's so funny because like I do feel like we met, we were the same age, and you had a lot of older friends. You were really close with DJ Hazard and a
Yeah.
couple of other older comedians, and you seem to have a kinship with the older crew.
Yeah.
There's another. I think you were close with the guy who opened for Sam Kinnis. Somebody, hold on.
Yeah.
Someone's okay. Yeah, so like you were always friendly with. I'm back, by the way. Sorry, just got interrupted. You were always friendly with older comedians, and so that makes sense, knowing that you grew up kind of being friends with the older kids.
Yeah, I mean, even as like a young kid, like when I was like grade school, I used to hang out with my cousins who were all older. That's why I'm so into like early 80s music. Like I was a little kid. I didn't like there's no way a 4-year-old would be a Van Halen fan.
Yeah. Well, you
But
also
I
like
had
older movies.
cousins. Yeah, I love old movies too. And it's because I had all these older people in my life that I followed their trends, you know?
The funniest thing you were doing was a few years ago. What were those sketches? It was the Robert Goulet.
Wayne Newton.
Wayne Newton. You were great in those, like an insane Wayne Newton.
And the best part is where like no millennials know who Wayne Newton is, and then all these like young people are like, "You don't think I know who Wayne Newton is?"
He's such a funny choice, and just making him like you made him like almost like insane.
Yeah,
was so fucking funny.
Just telling sex stories. I'll never forget when Phyllis and Diller.
Dude, yeah, I don't know what you have on. Do you have I keep on all the old channels, so like I have Antenna TV on all day.
Yeah.
Me TV, Decades.
Yeah, you have a really good taste. Angie and I were talking about that. We would talk about TV shows while we were driving out to the Poconos or to Long Island, and we'd be talking TV shows. And we are the same age, I think, and I always considered you younger because you were hip. You knew you were into modern stuff. But then we'd get in the car and it would talk about like Mr. Belvedere or something. Oh. I'm like, I can't believe he knows that show.
Oh yeah, no, I like both. Because I'm into superheroes and video games, so I keep up to date with that stuff. But I love like the old TV shows and the old like variety series and stuff like that.
Are you gonna do a season just on Marvel stuff?
Yes, I'm gonna eventually. So I'm doing this, then the live action remakes, then the Marvel cartoon movies. There's only like 5. And then I might do Star Wars because I know a lot of comedians have a lot to say about those movies.
Oh my god, yeah.
And now that obviously the Disney owns them, so we'll go back to the 70s and disco and shit. Star Wars holiday special I got to cover, but eventually we'll do the live action Marvel stuff. Yeah.
When I was on the Disney ship, it was funny because I was like, I don't know if I can like put up with a week of like It's a Small World and blah blah blah. Then all of a sudden I realized I got on the ship and it was like the one theater was just playing Marvel stuff. And like I huge hit. I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be the greatest ever.
Yeah. Now, was your kids with you? Your sons with you?
So no, they couldn't go on the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a practice run, and then they were supposed to go with me on all the other ones.
Oh wow. Okay. So what they didn't get to go, obviously.
Yeah.
So, Riccadonna, let me ask you, were there any animated series or animated movies when you were a kid that like inspired you? And I got a follow-up since you're one of the rare comics who has kids and let's just sit home all day and jerk off to you porn. Are there any movies or TV or animated TV shows that your kids are enjoying nowadays?
Okay, so first off, I love cartoons. Love when I was a kid, it was like all about Saturday morning cartoons. And I go back to, I'll watch the Hanna-Barbera stuff I would watch. But the shows that I really, really loved was DuckTales. I loved
it. Oh, DuckTales is great.
DuckTales and Tailspin was my jam after school.
And Chippendale Rescue Rangers also. That was like between those two, yeah.
And it was always like as soon as I'd get home, I'd put those on. But in the morning, I was really into like G.I. Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the other one that was in the morning that was animated? I did like the Transformers, but G.I. Joe was like, and Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, okay, yeah, oh, yeah, well, obviously. That's such a stupid concept that took off. Like, if I pitched that to you, you'd say to me, Gootz, I think you went insane. If it was never came out, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
still going. People, I just love those characters.
I don't understand because now I have 2 little kids,
Mhm.
that are 4 and 6. They just knew what the Ninja Turtles were. Like,
Yeah.
I don't remember introducing them to the
Well,
Ninja Turtles. It
they're
was
on
just like,
Nickelodeon.
yeah, but the kids were just like, we're going to watch the Ninja Turtles. I'm like, how do you even know what they are?
Yeah.
Like, like when you're a baby and you're born and you're in that little like plastic thing and the parents are looking through the glass window. It's like the nurses like inserted a Ninja Turtle chip in their head.
I feel like that. Well, that was me with Superman and Batman. I just knew who they were. Like I
Yeah.
don't remember a time where it was like, who is that? It was just like Batman, Superman. They're around. You know them. The end. Same
Yeah.
with Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse. At least when I was a kid.
Yeah. Do you remember Tiny Toons?
Oh yeah, they're bringing that back actually.
That's great.
Yeah.
So the Tiny Toons and Animaniacs,
Mm-hmm.
I had as a kid, I had like a crisis of conscious of like, are these supposed to be the same people or are these like from different artists? Are these different companies and they're stealing each other's thing? Like I didn't understand. One was Warner and
No, they're
one
both
was
Warner.
they're both Warner.
They're both.
But it
They're
was
both
like Babs and Buster, and then what were the Animaniacs too?
a Yakko,
Jock,
Wacko, and Doc.
and that was like the Russian version or the Eastern European version of
Yeah.
Tiny Toons. They were a little dirtier.
Mm-hmm.
They were a little harsher.
A little bit more adult. I mean, they were doing a Goodfellas parody for a kids show. I remember the pigeons.
That's right.
So, and I remember when my dad loved the Goodfellas, but I remember as a kid, I'm like, what other kid besides me is going to get this? Because my dad would watch the funny scene. He would rewind it back and forth and just went, funny how? How am I funny? And that was the whole bit on the cartoon.
I just loved cartoons, man. I could watch. I never got into the Japanese anime stuff I never really got into that or the realistic cartoons. The more realistic it got, the less interested I was. I liked animals that talked, fought crime. Like it was even like the X-Men cartoon that came out it was pretty good. But I was like, I want this in my comic book, not on my.
I like the X-Men cartoon because I like the comic book, but I thought the Batman cartoon, which is very stylized 40s style, I thought that was the best one. I don't think it's ever been topped.
Yeah.
Remember that one from the mid-90s?
It's very angular drawings.
Yes, and it felt very much like Max Fleischer, who did the Superman theatrical ones.
Yeah.
I thought, I was like, this is what I like. The X-Men cartoon just seemed a little bit too kiddish. That seemed like a show for adults, so I kind of
so as I got then older and I kind of stopped watching cartoons, I remember them when my kids when Axel was born, I was kind of like excited to start watching cartoons again and getting into it. And now it's a whole different ball game. Axel has been loyal to day one to Thomas the Tank Engine.
Okay, well, I like that show, so I'll give him credit.
Yeah, no, but still to this day, 6 years old, he's still like, if I put the Thomas music on my phone, he'll dance, he sings to it,
Awesome.
And it's just, he always loved Thomas, and it was such a cool thing to see him so loyal to a certain thing. But there's a cartoon, it's on Netflix, and I don't know I want to say it's French, but I don't know if it is. It's called Booba.
No, I never heard
You've
of that.
never watched Booba?
No.
He's like this he looks like a guy who would like listen to disco music and smoke cigarettes. He's like this white fur ball. Looks like he has a big beard, he looks like one of the Bee Gees.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But he's like this little fur ball guy, and he just gets his ass kicked all the time. Everything he does is like him getting shot out of a fan, and then next thing you know, a frying pan falls on him, and then this bird comes over and hits him in the face with a grape. And we just sit there and laugh and watch it. There's no words.
That kind of sounds like a fun show, man.
It's just the silliness and the animation's beautiful. Like it's really fun to watch.
I got rid of cable. I have Sling TV now, but when I had cable, they brought back the Muppet Babies on
Oh yeah.
Disney Junior, and man, did they dumb that down. And it's like
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like they write shows for kids now, and they make it like just like the most dull, dreary dialogue, basic stuff. And I'm like, kids can get sarcasm, kids can get humor.
Yeah.
You don't have to make it this stupid. Like the original Muppet Babies, I was watching at 2-3 years old, and I thought it was genius.
Yeah. I mean, watching the shows with my kids, there's another one. It's called Grizzly and the Lemmings.
No, it's all. I think Netflix has like the good cartoons now. I don't really watch a lot of Netflix.
So like this one is another one like Booba. There's no language.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this bear fighting these lemmings who just love this bear. It's like ridiculous. And I think it's kind of the kids love it. I don't hate it. Yeah, I think you're right. A lot of the modern cartoons we'd watch, and I'm like, this is just. Oh,
I mean, yeah. Do they think kids have brain damage? Like, I watched the Winnie the Pooh one, where they're like, they're like looking for. We got to find a circle, and the girl goes to the TV. Can you find circles in your house? See if you can find 5. And then she just stares at the screen for like 45 seconds, like she's tripping out in fucking mushrooms. And I'm like, what? Who is this for? If I was a kid, even at 2, I would have been like, Mom, what did you put on? Like,
yeah, there's a couple good ones like Paddington.
Yeah. Paddington's great. Well, the PBS stuff is not written for mentally ill people, but I feel like the Disney stuff is, and some of the Nickelodeon stuff is.
Yeah, I loved Paddington. I loved
Clifford.
That's a good one. The
Aardvark dude.
Oh, I hate Arthur.
Oh, really? Okay. I know some kids like it. That seems like a smart show. Maybe I was wrong.
I kind of like the old school cartoons where it's a little gruff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a series, The Story Bots and Number Blocks.
Okay.
And famous comedians and actors do the voiceovers in it. Mm-hmm. And it's super, super educational. The whole thing is educational. But like Tommy Chong and Snoop Dogg and like all these great comics are in it. And it's just fun to watch, and the kids like it. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, every episode starts with these little robots, and then somebody has a question. What makes weather? So now these like 5 little robots go out and they have to figure out what makes weather.
Okay.
And it
sounds like fun.
Even as an adult, I'm going like, whoa, I didn't know that. This is pretty cool.
That's like a good show. That sounds like fun. Yeah, man, but like, the one thing about it is you got to give it this. Kids have so much choice now that we didn't have.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I had 3 or 4 channels.
Yeah.
Because I lived out in the sticks where we didn't even have cable. We couldn't get it, even if we wanted it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then it was like later, like, high school, when we got cable, I was like, whoa.
Well, here's titties. Holy shit.
I used to have a friend of mine who lived in town record MTV for me. So I could have like Headbangers Ball and all that stuff.
That would be I would have my friends record the wrestling for me, and like they'd make a 6-hour tape, but I would leave it on like I had had that channel. I got the wrestling channel on, but it's just a fucking
VHS tape.
Yeah. Like, look at these commercials that you don't see on Channel 4. Like, so great. So let's get into the main event. Mark, let me ask you a question. Before you watch this for the podcast, had you ever seen Bug's Life before?
Yes.
Okay. When?
When it was in theaters, I went and saw it. I want to say, do you remember the year of
98.
Okay, so I was it was in theaters. I was dating this girl who had 3 nephews, who really wanted to, they loved when I would take them out. Mm-hmm. So we all went and saw Bug's Life. I used to take them to see shows, and I was excited to see it because Dave Foley is in it.
Yes, he's the lead, yeah.
And I don't understand how Dave Foley did not become a leading man, the awkward leading man.
Oh, well,
that guy's career should have skyrocketed.
Have you seen a picture of him lately?
Yeah. Yeah.
He let himself fall apart because I'm like, what happened to you? Like, Andy Dick, say what you will. He looks like Andy Dick. Joe Rogan is in phenomenal shape. I'm talking about everybody from News Radio.
Yeah.
That woman, Maura Tierney, still looks really hot. And he just looks like a guy who runs a deli in Montana. I'm like, dude, what happened to you, buddy?
Who was the girl? I can't think of her name. Phil Hartman and Joe Rogan were always fighting over.
Was she the girl with the red hair?
No, the black girl.
Black girl, I forget.
She is like one of the most talented actresses.
Mm-hmm.
She's in all these movies where she plays serious dramatic roles. And then you look back at News Radio and she's like a 10 and hysterical.
Yeah.
Then she'll play like a heroin addict that looks like you wouldn't touch her. Push her off with a crowbar, you wouldn't touch her.
I would love it. I had this idea the other day. They should bring back News Radio, but it's the Joe Rogan podcast. And all of the people are now working for him on the podcast. And they're all like, how the fuck did the handyman get the biggest podcast? And they're like, keep him as the handyman character. But now he has
a podcast after they're done doing AM radio.
Yeah, and they now have to work for him. He's the head of the company.
Yeah, I mean John Lovett's filled in for Phil Hartman.
Yeah, and
bring him back.
Bring Dave Foley. Well, Andy Dick had beef with them, but just I'm convinced if Phil Hartman didn't die, we would not have the Joe Rogan show, because I think that show would have lasted for like 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
And he would have just had so much money in a sitcom, he wouldn't have started a podcast. He would have been like
Phil Hartman was by far one of the most talented. Stephen Root was the boss. He changed how people played bosses from that show.
Oh, he was great too.
Phil Hartman just, not only did he steal that show, if he was in the background in the booth while the scene was going on, you were watching him.
Yeah.
And he wasn't trying to steal the show. He was just so goddamn good as that character, that dry, yes, well, it's great to be here.
He was just, I'm just wondering like what all the great projects he could have done the last 25 years.
If Phil Hartman didn't die, Eugene Levy would not be as famous as he is.
Yeah.
Because
true.
when you wanted a dry, straight man, you would have went, that's funny. It would have went to him. And Eugene Levy's great. I'm not taking anything away from him. But Phil Hartman was like the man.
Oh, yeah. If Phil Hartman didn't die, I think Alex Jones would still be in a basement somewhere. Like I just feel like Joe Rogan never would have done that podcast. The whole Hillary Clinton right now would be in their second term. We got to go back in time.
It's the butterfly effect, man.
Yeah. A poor guy. So now you rewatch Bug's Life. What do you think of the movie?
So, really good. I watched it with my kids. I had them watch it with me. We did a movie night actually last week, and Duke fell asleep, but rightly so. He had a very activity-filled day, so he was ready to zonk out. He fell asleep before the grasshoppers showed up.
Oh, wow, okay. Early.
And he kept calling them crickets, and then he passed out. But Axel loved it. He stayed up with me and watched almost to the end, which is like a big feat. My kids during movie night are always out halfway through.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I've seen a million kids' movies halfway through. Have no idea how they end. But we stayed up. We watched it. The kids, it kept their attention. Mm-hmm. I feel like there was so many stars in it, and this might have been before they were huge stars.
Well, Dennis Leary is the ladybug. You have Kevin Spacey as the grasshopper. It's kind of an insane cast.
Yeah, and Kevin Spacey wasn't what we think of Kevin Spacey now. Mm-hmm. American, what was that movie that really popped him? American Beauty.
Yeah,
didn't come out yet.
Mm-mm. No.
So he was kind of, he played some small parts here and there. Funny enough, he's the bad guy in Bug's Life, and wasn't he Kaiser Sose? He
was Kaiser Sose, but I didn't realize it was him watching. This is the second time I forgot it was him, because he sounds like such a tough guy in this movie. Yeah. But picturing like either Joe Montana, not Joe Montana, the football player, Joe
Joe
Montana.
Montana, yeah.
Yeah. Or who was the other one I thought he was? I thought he was some. I had the actor in my head, but like, Clancy Brown. I thought it was like some older, bigger actor.
Yeah.
And then when I found out it's Kevin Spacey, I'm like, that's a great performance.
Another one that really, as soon as he talked, I forgot he was in it because I forgot he was still alive back then. But it was the doctor from Lost in Space.
That's right. He was in this. Yeah.
He was like the praying mantis. It was like a magician. He was so goddamn good in it. What's his name? Niles from Frasier was the stick bug.
Mm-hmm.
He was awesome. The only stick with eyes.
Yeah, he's great as a stick. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is the princess.
She was killer. And
Phyllis Diller.
That was when she started talking, I just turned and looked at Angie and go, that's Phyllis Diller. And she's like, no, it can't be. I'm like, it is. Like, it is her. Yeah. And then we looked it up. I was like, could you imagine being the animator? And
the funny thing is she looks just like Phyllis Diller, the bug.
I know.
Like the Dave Foley bug doesn't look like Dave Foley, but the Phyllis Diller bug, that's Phyllis Diller.
Yeah, Dave Foley has that. He has that.
I think they wrote
voice.
The role. I could be wrong. I think they wrote the role for Dave Foley in mind.
They had to, but Dave Foley's voice is that young, adventurous. Mm-hmm. Exciting voice, you know what I mean? Where it worked so perfect. If it was live, Dave Foley would not be the right character. You'd have to get like Jonathan Taylor Thomas or somebody at the time, because Dave Foley is like a man child. He looks like he's 10, but he also looks like he's 35.
Well, not anymore.
Not anymore. Now he looks like a deli guy in Montana.
Let me tell you something. If you want a physical reminder that the 90s were a long time ago, just look at Dave Foley. And you're like, because remember, he was Kids in the Hall.
Yeah.
And News Radio. And, to me, like 1991 is yesterday. And then I look at a picture of him and I'm like, oh, no, I'm getting older. Like the 90s were a long, long time ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about it. We were in high school.
Yeah.
We were in high school. Now look at us. We're, looking at 40 over the hill.
Movies. Yeah. I like this. I enjoyed the movie. I thought the animation was a little crude compared to what they're doing nowadays, but I don't really hold that against them. This was a whole new technology, and they had only done Toy Story.
My kids didn't notice or think it was like old-fashioned looking.
Oh, good. Okay. See, maybe me because like
you were so into it.
Well, I didn't grow up with CGI, so I can kind of notice when CGI. Like, I didn't notice Hanna-Barbera had shitty animation until I got older. It was just like, oh my god, this is great. It's Flintstones. But if you watch it now, it's like they're barely moving. And I think now with computer animation, though, I'm much more aware because I didn't grow up with this. I mean, this all kind of came out when I was 14. So
yeah, it's an odd thing because when you're little, well, the thing is experience. You don't know any better. So if you're a baby and you're watching, these old sci-fi shows and these old cartoons, you just go, okay.
Yeah.
But then you show them Toy Story, and it's like, wait, what? Like, these toys are walking?
Have you shown your kids Toy Story?
Yes, they like it.
They like it?
They didn't at first, and I got really like, oh, no, like, this is such a good show, but they were too young.
Okay.
My kid, what's weird? For somebody who's my offspring, I love movies. I can watch the same movie 1,000 times. I never get bored of it. My kids can't sit and watch a full-length movie. They want to be active. They're like, unless it's movie night where they're doing it right before bed. If I put a movie on right now, even if it's like a movie that hasn't come out and they're getting the first take on it, 15 minutes in, they're going, okay, can we like go outside or?
Oh, wow. That's nice because most kids are like, I'm watching this movie and it's 5 sequels right now. You know,
Yeah, my kids right now, they're out on a walk with their mom. That's what
that's
they wanted to do as soon as school was over.
that's fucking great. Yeah, I love that because I feel like we're losing that. Like I don't see any kids playing in the street anymore. Well, also this COVID, but I don't see that anymore in the
Yeah.
neighborhood here in Astoria. And I feel like kids need to be out more and stuff. I feel like too, I went to California and I'm not. I love my. I guess he's my nephew. I don't know what he is. Anyway, um, but my little cousin, he had his face buried in the YouTube, and the YouTube videos are woo. Those are badly made. Those are like
Yeah.
you might as well be watching Joe Rogan at that point. But yeah, so it's nice to see kids out and about.
Yeah, well, what's cool, our neighborhood, and the reason we picked it is so across the street, next door, and next door to our next door neighbor, all have kids the same age.
Oh, great.
So during this quarantine, everybody was being safe, everybody was being smart, and then all of a sudden, at one point, we all went, "Hey, you've been being safe, you've been being safe. Our houses aren't even socially distanced. Let's let the kids
Yeah.
play." And now the kids get together and play. And we had the quarantine just a couple weeks ago because I was exposed to somebody who was sick. And we quarantined away from everybody so they wouldn't get exposed. I got tested. Turned out I didn't get it.
Mhm.
So, they're back to playing and back to whatever. But we've been being really smart about it. But all the kids in our neighborhood are like outdoor kids. Like they
Yeah.
want to be out. They want to be playing. Their favorite thing, and it sucked because we couldn't do it this year, is there's a million great parks. And the kids love going to the parks and doing the trails. And of course, Duke, my youngest, jumps right into the water to try to catch frogs. Like it's a thing.
I never thought I'd hear that sentence again in 2020 because I feel like that was like a thing that kids would do in like the olden times.
Yeah, back in the 80s, back when kids were allowed to fucking fall in water.
Yeah, back when you were allowed to like fucking hurt yourself to learn. Now it's like, oh. So this movie, going back to Bug's Life, there's an interesting story behind this movie. So Jeff Katzberg was a bigwig at Disney, and he leaves to form DreamWorks, which was the company with Steven Spielberg and David Geffen. Do you remember that company?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Pixar says Disney, in our next movie, we're going to make it about bugs. And they have like a time limit when to make it. Cool. Somehow I got back to Jeff Katzberg. And he's like, well, our first movie is going to be about bugs. And we got Woody Allen, which was ants. I don't know. Have you ever seen that? Yeah. So Disney goes, we got to beat this fucking movie to the theater. You got less than half the time, and you got to make Toy Story 2. So this movie, they rushed this movie to beat ants. And I think they came out like within weeks of each other.
I do remember that.
Mm-hmm. And it was the Battle of the Bugs.
I remember when we went to the theater with my girlfriend and her nephews, I remember saying, I thought a different actor was in, and they were like, no, that's the other one. I'm like, how many movies are about ants?
Did you ever see ants?
You know what? Let's talk about something real fast, and I'm going to look it up and see if I recognize it.
Okay. The funny thing is, it's like they're big coups. You got Woody Allen for. I don't know how that's going to get kids into the theater, but I guess that was supposed to be the big coup. All Sharon Stone and Stallone are also in that movie, but it's so funny. It's almost like a Gene Hackman. This is after.
Aykroyd.
Wow, that's a fucking cast and a half.
Bancroft.
This is the Battle of the Bugs.
Curtin, Danny Glover, J-Lo, who is at the height of her popularity. Listen to this. Wait, check this out. John Mahoney, who played Frasier's dad.
They're just dividing.
Was in
Bugs? Yeah, they're just dividing Frasier's household.
Christopher Walken was in it. That's who I was wondering. I thought Christopher Walken was in this.
Okay.
And they were like, oh, no, that's ants. I'm like, how many fucking bug movies are there?
It'd be funny if another company came out with, like, Caterpillar the movie. Like, it was just this big bug battle.
But, I mean, they're both about ants, not...
Yeah, that's the other... Yeah, although I feel like the ants and ants look very creepy. They're brown, their faces...
it's very, like, creepy face. They look like aliens.
Yeah, and I never saw it because I was like, well, Pixar made Toy Story. I'm going with them. So I almost like I was like, I never saw Ants, but I bought Ants a few months ago because it was only $5, and I've been meaning to watch it. I heard it's aged well, and
Yeah,
Woody Allen does a good performance. No kids get raped, so
that's a bonus.
that's a bonus on a kids movie. It's always
Yeah.
a bummer when kids start getting raped on the set. But yeah, I like the character designs. I kind of feel like it's not as good as Toy Story, the original. Like when I saw it, I expected the first time I saw it, I expected another amazing experience like Toy Story. And they kind of have over the years, they don't promote this movie as much as they do Monsters Inc. or Finding Nemo. They've kind of made like almost a forgotten film.
I mean, when there was Babies R Us and my kids were first born, you go to buy sheets for the crib.
Mm-hmm.
There's Monster Inc. sheets. There's Toy Story sheets. There's Mickey and Minnie sheets. You never saw a Bug's Life sheets.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
Did it not do well?
It did well for its time. I think it did because that was like the only animated movie out for that. So I think it did. I remember it doing monster business because when the VHS came out, it was like everywhere. Yeah, but for some reason, it hasn't resonated.
Well, and like there's no stuffed animals of, you don't see any of those, which I think, especially with Ants or Bug's Life over Ants, they're adorable.
Yeah, well, Dave Foley. Who wouldn't want to be friends with a Dave Foley bug?
If Ants walked around my house and talked like Dave Foley, I would invite them all in.
Oh man, everyone would live in the suburbs. You got to hang out with Dave Foley. Dave Foley and Niles?
Come on.
Who needs that? Yeah, but overall, I mean, it's weird. I'm surprised he never tried to do a sequel or anything. I think it's a little bit too late at this point. I think they've kind of moved on. Yeah. But I think it's a fun movie, and I think it's a fun movie for you. Obviously, your kids enjoyed it, so that means it still resonates to this day. Yeah,
and like the big scene where they like have the bird. Mm-hmm. They created a fake bird out of the leaves to scare the
grasshoppers.
Mm-hmm. It was like intense. It was exciting. It was like, oh, this is awesome. And I feel like, I mean, maybe it's not as. It didn't have a soundtrack that made you, like Toy Story has a soundtrack that's amazing, and they have these characters that are very.
The songs are good in Toy Story. This song and this one, there's only one song, and it's kind of like,
Yeah, and I feel bad because it was a good movie. It was fun. I don't know why it's not you should be able to buy the toys.
Maybe like parents didn't want their kids sleeping with a giant ant. I don't know.
We're not having ants in this house.
You can sleep with Nemo, but you're not sleeping with the ant.
We're okay with Nemo.
So, Riccadonna, where can people find you on social media? What are you even up to nowadays?
The best thing to do is markriccadonna.com because then you can go to all my social media. But I have a podcast as well, and I got to get you on it. Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling. And it's me and Richie Byrne. And
I love him. He's the best.
Yeah, we make a cocktail. We have you tell a couple street jokes, and then we just start bullshitting.
That's fucking great. I love it.
Yeah.
And are you be doing any shows? This comes out next Friday. Any shows in November?
Yes. So actually, this is a big one. November 27th. Mm-hmm. I am going to be at the Wall Street Theater in Norwalk, Connecticut. But if you go to wallstreettheater.com, they actually have a streaming link, and they're shooting a 5-camera shoot in front of a real audience. It's like a 1,500 seat room, and we're performing for like 200. But they're going to film it like a Netflix special. So you get to watch a live, real special. It's me, Aaron Berg, Tom Cotter, and Mitch Fatel.
That's an amazing lineup. I mean, if you don't buy that, you should be shot in the face.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous good show.
Oh, so good.
I kind of hate being on the show because I know I'm the bottom of the totem pole of the crew.
Hey, let me tell you something. Mitch, no, you're the fucking king of that crew, as far as I'm concerned.
I love you, Gootz.
Yeah. Guys, this is your first time listening to the podcast, whether you're a huge Bug Life fan, a Mark Riccadonna fan, or a Capone fan, or what have you. I have done every Disney film from Snow White to Frozen 2, and I'm doing the Pixar. We did Toy Story last week with Eagle Wit. Please subscribe to us on iTunes, Gootz Disney Pod. Follow me, Ray Gootz. Follow the podcast on Instagram and Twitter, Gootz Disney Pod. And next week, we're going to have Toy Story 2, big sequel with Christian Durant. Yeah, that's the next one.
That's a good one.
Going back to Toy Story. And the other thing is, hey, come out and support the Haunted House comedy. I'm going to talk to Riccadonna about getting him on here when I hang up. So you never know. It's a free show, and if you come by, you might see Riccadonna and the Gootz, and we'll sign your Bug Life. Bring your Bug Life DVDs. We'll sign them.
We'll sign them for you.
Hey, man. Let me tell you something. Phyllis Diller, nice woman, not much of a draw. All right?
Not much of a draw.
Not much of a draw. Should I tell that story before we go? I always thought that.
Yeah, go for it.
I think that's a great story. So I remember this happened. I think you picked me up. We had a meeting at Caroline's, and Robert Schimmel had just died. And
yeah, it was Memorial Day?
It was around that, yeah. And everyone's sitting there very sad. And, like, I remember just so hard. It was Robert Schimmel fought a lot of disease, and I think he died from complications of a car crash or something
Yeah, he got in a car wreck, and it was like he had 1,000 horrible things going on with his cancer.
He had like cancer every 3
organs
weeks.
Failing.
Yeah, and he beat it all, and
and made it funny.
Yeah, and I think also his wife had just left him too. It was
for a yoga instructor that lived next door.
Yeah, so the guy just got but when comics opened, and this is a whole other podcast. When I go on your podcast, I'm gonna have a lot to rant about. But when comics opened, they started offering well above market rates to headliners. So if you were a headliner and you got $10,000, they would offer you $25,000 to jump. And a lot of Caroline's headliners jumped, and Caroline's got mad at them, which I used to agree with when I was younger. Now I don't, because if you have a wife and a kid, and one place is offering you $25,000, one place is offering you 10. I don't think anyone should hold it against you. Should go for that $25,000, because the first, and you know this as a guy now with 2 kids, your first and foremost duty is to your children.
Yeah,
your fan, to their future, and no club should hold it against you that you're going for as much money as you can, especially in this business where there's no fucking money. Anyway,
you work for nothing so long, so when you finally get paid, people hate it.
You work for now. Brian Kennedy told me a story where the owner of Caroline's went to his agent at a party. I can't believe Robert Schimmel did that to us. Isn't he loyal? And the guy walked away and said he's loyal to his family, right? But anyway, he was never brought back to Caroline's, and he died. And we're sitting having a meeting, and the staff is very upset. And the GM goes, he was a great comic. Great comic. Not much of a draw. All right, let's go. Now, whenever someone dies, I text Riccadonna,
wasn't much of a draw.
But not much of a draw, though. So sad. I think it was a comedian died that we were both friends with, and I said to you, so sad. And you were like, I know, I can't believe it. I have tears in my eyes, and I just wrote, and I thought that not much of a draw, though.
Was it Meany? Kevin Meany?
No, it was someone who just died. He was very young, who just recently died. I forget.
Oh.
But you were I know it was someone we both knew, and you were very sad. And
Vic Henley, then. Probably.
Vic Henley. And
that was a tough one, man.
That was a tough one, man. He was such a good dude.
Oh, I love that guy.
And I remember you texting me like, "Gootz, I'm so sad. I don't know what to do." And I just wrote back, "Not much of a draw." And I think that lightened.
I was glowing the rest of the night, thinking Vic would have laughed at that.
Yeah,
Vic
but a great comic. Yeah. But anyway, guys, Phyllis Diller, not much of a draw. We will see you next week for Toy Story 2. Thank you.